Hi, this is Randy again, and we're back this time to look at configuring inbound firewall rules. It'll take a couple of videos, maybe, I don't know, two or three to do this. And let's start with the picture. So what I've done here is I've filled in some of my information, and I want to draw your attention to what we're wanting to do here. Over here we've got this Linux host, and this Linux host is going to provide DNS services to the internet for our name, for hawaii.bobstaco.com or hi.bobstaco.com. And we wanted to do it using both its IPv4 address and its IPv6. And again, I've truncated the IPv6 address. The full address is much longer. I'm just showing you the last part of it. So when we think about doing this and we look at our firewall here, there's a couple of different considerations. The first one is for IPv6. Well, IPv6 does not use network address translation. It doesn't use it, not at all. And because of that, when we go to configure a rule, an inbound firewall rule for IPv6, all we do is we just go to the firewall and we say listen on this port, and when you receive a request on this port, in our case the port is 53 for DNS, when you receive a request on port 53, then forward it internally to a host, to a single host, and to its port 53. That's a very straightforward rule. It's different with IPv4. With IPv4, we're using private addresses. Excuse me, we're using public addresses. Nope, we're using private addresses inside. I get those confused all the time. And they are not routable on the internet. That was part of that rule that 1918 rule, or whatever that rule number was, that RFC, is those are not allowed on the internet. And so what we have to do then to support our 172 addresses on the inside is we need to use network address translation for IPv4. And we're going to do that. And so it may take a couple of different rules to do that. But I hope that the picture is clear to you. Let me just draw this a little bit more, and then perhaps wrap up this video, and we'll just get right into the rules. All right, so let me just take a color here. Let's just take red, and red is going to be IPv6. So someone out here on the internet is going to want to do a lookup for www.hawaii.bobstaco.com. They're going to go through and they're going to go to the roots. They're going to go to top level domain. They're going to go to our parent server, just bobstaco.com, and they're going to get a delegation that's going to send them over to your firewall, to your external IP, either of these two. Going to send them over here, and it's going to then present at your firewall on port 53. You're going to receive a request from this client through the internet on port 53, and it's going to land right there. Now for IPv6, we have a rule that just says, okay, that's allowed, and it will go through the firewall, and it will be sent then to this host. For IPv4, it's going to, I drew this as the firewall, that's actually the switch. So for IPv4, we'll do this in blue. It's going to come in, it's going to present it at the firewall right there. Again, it's going to be looking at port 53 on your external interface. That would be this one. And it's going to need to be network address translated. So the firewall will then at network address translate that, and it will repackage the request not to the 198 address, but it'll package it to a 172 address. And then a rule needs to allow it. It'll go through the firewall, and it will be presented to the DNS server. So they're very, very different. And let me just mention one other thing along the same lines. You also have the option of doing alternate ports. Now that wouldn't make any sense for, whoops, I erased everything, that's okay. Using alternate ports wouldn't make any sense for DNS, because DNS needs port 53. But let's say that we've got this machine down here and we want to do a remote desktop protocol. Well, that's on port 3389. Well, 3389 is, you don't want to advertise that on the internet. That's like putting a bullseye or a target, inviting people to shoot at your network. You don't want to do that. So what we'll sometimes do as a way around it is we'll do something like this. We'll say, listen out here. Here's the firewall. Listen on port, say we're going to listen at port 5000. Listen on port 5000, and if you receive a record on port 5000, then through network address translation for IPv4, convert that to where you're going to have it come in. It's going to come in on 5000. It's going to get translated here within our firewall, come out looking for 3389. That's what we call an alternate port. So you listen on the internet side on one port, and you configure your firewall to listen for that port, but then when the firewall receives traffic on that port that's allowed, it then repackages it and puts it onto an alternate port, 3389 in our case, and then forwards it to an internal host. So those are the different inbound things that we can do with our firewall to allow access from the internet. This would be what we call unsolicited access, meaning that nobody inside initiated this, none of our internal clients initiated this. From the internet, a request was made that was not prompted by something happening inside of our network. All right, so that's an overview, and I'll wrap up this video, and then we'll jump into setting this up in pfSense.